Okay, here we go.
There you are.
5, 4. Hello, everyone. James Floyd Kelly here. Welcome to another episode of Novel Ideas. I believe we're up to episode 20.
Yes, we
Oh my
are.
gosh. I forgot to mute my phone. So sorry about that. Episode 20, Eric.
Wow.
I'm here with my friend Eric Wex. If you've been watching up to now, you know who he is. If you're not don't know who Eric is, Eric Wex is a fellow writer. He writes fiction. He writes some nonfiction, but mainly fiction. My name's James Floyd Kelly. I write mainly nonfiction, but we're here to we talk about writing, editing, cover titles. Covers, titles. We talk about anything and everything related to writing, and we try to keep it under 20 minutes. So um, I'm actually going to steer this conversation because Eric is he's somewhat humble. He's not going to want to talk about some things that I want to talk to him about. This episode is about a new story that Eric is writing with his daughter. And man, I'm sorry.
Anyone can read it. Anyone can read it.
Can read it. It's called Gossamer, and it is a young adult. I don't know if you like that term, young adult, but it is a young adult superhero
origin story.
It involves a young girl named Kaylee, and we're going to talk about it because Eric sent it over to me. I've read most of it, Eric. I think I've got like 2 pages left on it, and apologies.
If you want to read part 1, that is posted in the Facebook group called Gossamer's Army. Just send an invite, and we'll accept everyone, and then you can download an RTF file from there to actually read it.
And this is kind of cool. If you're a fan of Eric's, or if you just enjoy listening to us banter on, you really want to pick it up and read it because this is a story that's developing. Eric's writing it with his daughter, and you're going to get a firsthand. Unlike Gravlander, which is Eric writing by himself, and also he somewhat recognizes that his Gravlander serial story is going to be fleshed out.
Yes.
This is a story that it's really ready to go. Eric wants reader feedback. So if you're interested in seeing a novel develop from day one, and if you're interested in just seeing where this book goes with Eric and his daughter, you're going to want to follow along with this because it's pretty slick. Eric, we'll talk a few minutes later. Let's talk about the book, but a little bit. Let's get back on the topic of this army.
Okay.
But so here's my question for you. You sent out the first. What is this? The first 5th of the book, 10th of the book?
Yeah, something like that. It'll be. I think we ended up sending out about a 5th or a little bit less.
Okay. It involves Kaylee. She's not. I wouldn't call her insecure, although she does have some insecurities.
I would call her insecure.
Well, okay.
Yeah, very insecure.
But here's the thing. You've hit on some behavior traits that even I remember back then. I remember girls being somewhat. I remember those girls being nervous around the guys and always wanting to watch how they behaved and what they did. They would get ultra embarrassed if they did something wrong. You're catching all that. Now, part of the benefit is you're writing this with your daughter. So can you tell us a little bit about that, or as much as you feel safe talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what you see, so the parts that I wrote are actually the parts with Aaron.
Okay.
And the parts with, well, actually, I would say the parts with Aaron are the pieces that I had together when I came to my daughter and I explained what I wanted to do with this and said, I would love to have you write this with me. And those actually have been pretty heavily edited because I felt like I created kind of a Kwisatz Haderach, this perfect adult.
Right.
In kid body. And so she's too precocious in those scenes. And I have really appreciated the voice that my 15-year-old has given to her in helping her be a lot more insecure, a lot less competent at the beginning of the story, which gives us, as writers, a lot more freedom to take her someplace.
Okay.
So she's got a journey to go on to become competent. And one of the things that we've done very intentionally that's very difficult to do, if you listen to Writing Excuses, that group of writers, Brandon Sanderson and company, use the word protagonist. They've created a verb out of it. So they will talk about your main character not protagging enough. That is, being in charge of their own decisions. Because for a reader, it can be a very frustrating experience to be asked to identify with a first person with a protagonist that isn't actually making decisions for themselves. It can be a very frustrating experience. But we wanted to create, we're very intentional that Kaylee has a lot of voices speaking into her life, because I think that's the experience of a younger teen, right? A 14-year-old has a lot of people speaking in, but not as much choice as they would prefer, and not as much choice as they could probably handle. And I think it's kind of a problem, because I think those teens tend to learn helplessness, right? And so you're seeing from Kaylee a lot of learned helplessness in her behaviors that I think is a bit problematic.
Well, okay, skipping the prologue, we'll come back to the prologue, and jumping right into chapter 1. You know, it's funny. You've got Kaylee at school. She's got this, like, she's got what they call the half locker. We never had those when I was in school. We had a full, locker, but she's got this half locker, and so she's on the bottom, and there's a boy who's got the one on top, and she's got this protective friend who puts her nose in sometimes when she probably shouldn't. I will tell you, I loved chapter 1. I really, even though I don't read young adult fiction, I've read some. I did enjoy reading it. It was kind of fun. It was like, okay, I don't know, how young girls or young boys who read this book, I don't know how they're going to read it. I know as an adult who has gone through the whole middle school and high school and stuff, I read it and I laughed. I was like, oh, I do remember those days when everybody was awkward and everybody felt awkward, and you always had that one friend that you thought was cooler than you. You had the cliques. You mentioned the cliques in there. So I really enjoyed chapter 1, and the reason I'm starting that is now I'm going to take a step back and tell you the prologue didn't do anything for me.
Okay.
Now listen, that's because you only gave me 4 chapters. I'm almost done with chapter 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So 3 of the chapters are with Kaylee and some of the people she's going to be acquainted with. The prologue was this mysterious group of men who meet in the top of this building, and they fly around in helicopters, so they're very rich and powerful, and they have this plan set in motion. It was vague. Now listen, if that vagueness is going to pay off soon, I'm okay with that. But when I finished chapter 4, I was like, well, who are these dudes? I didn't understand. I felt like the prologue was sort of just a dangler, and it didn't really fulfill.
So we have a bit of a problem. It depends on. So some of this depends on what I want to do with this book. So I write at what I just had a review of On the Far Bank of the Rubicon, and I thought that the person really nailed it when they said that I write at a measured pace.
Okay.
So I like writing action scenes, and I like intensity, but I don't like a book that is all intensity from the beginning.
Okay.
So my openings tend to be slow. I like the idea that you're going to get hit with the action, and that's the way it happens, right? When crazy, traumatic, awesome things happen in our life that are life-changing, we don't see them coming, and so I have an inherent problem, right? In that I can easily bore readers at the beginnings of my books.
Yeah. No. Let's take the word boring out. It wasn't boring. It was very ominous, but it jumped in. It was there at the beginning of the book, and then 3 chapters later, it was almost like you gave me a cliffhanger. But
that prologue is added. And this is my point.
Okay.
The prologue is added to create a time bomb.
Okay.
Because without that prologue, which it didn't have,
okay,
which would be the way I would be kind of inclined to write it, but the reader feedback I got was there's no tension. I'm in the middle of a CW episode.
Right.
Really, that was the feedback. This is very much Kaylee's concerns with high school and who likes who, and the small concerns of that, which are put in contrast to this big ominous thing that you don't know anything about.
Well, don't remove it. Don't remove it. Only because I want to see how the rest of the book plays out. It just.
It is dangling like mad, and in some sense it's supposed to. It's supposed to be there a little bit as something you're like, what was that about? And now we're off into these petty little concerns that we have no idea why they're there and what they're about.
No,
So,
you said this is about 1/5, so that would be like maybe a 20 to 25
so
chapter book.
you are literally 2 pages from the reappearance of some of those characters.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know. Because listen, I root for the bad guys. I always in a
Yeah,
book,
yeah, yeah.
in a book, I always like knowing a little bit more about the bad guys, and I feel like this bad guy group is sort of like our group. It's like this. I'm not a bad guy, but this is me. And if they cast for the movie, they're not going to cast me for the high schooler. I'm going to be the guy sitting at the table going, I want to know more about that group. But recognizing that it's a young adult story, I'm going to cut you up. I'm going to cut you some slack there and say, okay, I'll wait and see. I'll wait and see. But listen, I did have a question, and I asked you, is this part of a series, or is this a standalone book?
We will write it as a standalone, but certainly when you're writing a superhero origin story, there's always room to go, right? So I won't say we haven't thought about the future, but we definitely want to do Star Wars Episode 4, right, where you have complete closure and it can be what it is, and I never feel a need to come back to it again. So,
well, let me ask you another question.
I think I'm learning my lesson from my science fiction.
tell me about this this army idea of yours, because I really like it.
So this is a marketing idea. I guess I just want to leave it at that. This is a marketing idea. The idea that we want to do is that we want to create a loyal following for the book before it actually launches. And we want people to be invested in it by having had a voice in how it actually turns out. So my daughter is at her high school and faithfully talking up this book to people at her high school. We hope that some of those people become advocates for the book and tell their friends, and that we begin to get some viral traction on getting people signed up for that group. So we'd love to see.
You're calling it the Gossamer Army.
Gossamer's Army, yeah.
Gossamer's Army, excuse me. There'll be there'll be a Twitter feed, I assume, and
and as Gossamer gets more filled out, I don't know. We don't know where we want to go with that army. We may do a few things. We might, I don't know. I could see us supporting STEM. I could see us. I'm not kidding, right? Like let's get young girls excited about this character. Young girls excited, teen girls excited about this series of books, and then let's talk about the themes in those books, right? These themes of empowerment, the themes of making your own decisions in life. The themes of becoming an adult and understanding that your job as a teen is to become one, and what that means. The need to feed yourself,
Right.
I'm honestly having a conversation. I had this conversation the other night with my 15-year-old. I'm like, you realize that in 3 or 4 years, you are at the place, not where I'm not going to back you or support you. I will always back you or support you, but you are at the place where you start becoming responsible to put food in your own mouth.
Right.
And that's a frightening thought, and yet an important thought for a 14 and 15-year-old to start thinking through, because they need to get in a place where they prepare. So maybe we take some of it that way and just talk about those themes, because those are certainly themes Kaylee is going to be walking on the journey. Like the journey I've promised you is one in which Kaylee becomes more of a decision maker than she certainly is in the first few chapters. I mean, she's not a decision maker in her own life at all. Right. So her journey is to become one.
Well, let's talk real quick. We've got a few more minutes left. How do you like writing a book with your daughter?
Oh, it's fun. It's fun. I mean, when we're going well, it's great. It is a real trick. I mean, like, what do I want to say? It's hard enough for me to get my critical voice out of the way to be a good writer and just do it. It's doubly hard to get both of us kind of in sync where we're in that place at the same time. So there's certainly some more inertia involved in it, but I tell you, no one should think that this is in name only, or that this is really my book with her name on it. This is truly her voice for Kaylee. Kaylee is really her character more than it is mine. I'll take ownership of the world and the plot, but as far as making Kaylee real, and for instance, her scene with the scene with the stepdad was 100% hers, which is just fantastic. I love the way that scene went down and what he did, that he got into her phone and how she uses it and how she's there in that room trying to preserve her world, right? Trying to preserve herself from having to be told what to do, and she does it, right? She uses mom very, very well.
Yeah, the dialogue. I will say the dialogue rings true. It
Yeah,
doesn't sound. It doesn't sound. Now, granted, within reason, there dialogue you can't use the uhs and the ums and stuff like that. But reading the dialogue of Kaylee and the discussions with her friend, I'm like, wow, that's a daughter telling dad, no, 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 I would never say that.
oh, it's so true. And we have to be very careful on Facebook because so one of the things the audience should know is that Kaylee Blackburn has a Facebook account and she has a Twitter account, and you're welcome to follow her. I'd love to have you follow her there and interact with her. That we want our audience to begin to talk to Kaylee. It gives us practice in making her a character.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of weirdness about that because we're not sure. Like, I think what we're going to have her do is grow as we release parts of the story. So right now she's acting as Kaylee with the part that you read. So she's very insecure. You know, we need to talk about her relationship. Have you read through her relationship with Donovan yet?
Part of it, yes.
Part of it, yeah. I mean, we need to talk about her insecurities about her boyfriend somehow on Facebook.
I'm not sure what comes in the last 2 to 3 pages, but
yeah, well, you'll be interested to see. I mean, those pages when she's interacting with Donovan, that is where you see her, I think, at her most insecure, which I think is true, right? Relationships with the opposite sex at that age are the places where our insecurities come out the worst.
Yeah.
And so she compromises who she is a lot to make Donovan happy. And Donovan is able to use that, being a little bit older, a little bit wiser, is able to use that against her quite effectively.
Did your daughter base Ramona off of anybody?
Yeah,
I had to ask because I had a friend like that.
We've tried to figure out how to do Ramona, and I would say that Ramona is probably one of the more stereotypical characters in there. Yeah, and even to my shame, I would say that I originally she was African American, which we just felt like really just didn't feel right to me. It felt like I was hitting too many stereotypes at that point, because she's the spunky best friend. She's getting in the guy's face, and then to make her African American. And part of it was I started going back through the YA stuff, and every sidekick was African American.
Yeah.
Right. So we got to have some diversity here. So we throw some African American. What do we do? We made her Latino. Like, I'm not sure that helps too much.
It didn't bother me. I liked the character because I had a friend who thought he was always being sort of like, I had a friend who was a little over aggressive and didn't realize sometimes that he, dude, I can do this, I can handle this, and stuff. I like the Ramona character. So the reason I ask is I was just curious how Ramona's going to figure in later into the story, and I don't know if she's going to become a...
We need to sit down and talk. It's one of the things I've been thinking about a lot recently with the story, based on, again, writing excuses and some of the things I'm learning there. So if you're not listening to Writing Excuses, listen to Writing Excuses with Brandon Sanderson and others. I need a better character arc for her. So I appreciate the fact that you're flagging that as a need. I just need to know her character arc. I know some of her journey. I know that she's gonna. I think that everyone in Kaylee's life, without exception, is going to become very uncomfortable with what happens to Kaylee, and very uncomfortable with the changes that are happening to her, and not. It's just a world where things are going to be turned upside down. So we're going to have to figure out what that's going to look like.
Well, when I was reading it, that was one thing I thought was that you want to be careful that Ramona doesn't become this two-dimensional.
Yes.
Sort of the throwaway friend who's there for a little while, and then once Kaylee comes into her own. Wait a minute, what happened to Ramona?
Right.
You got to be careful of that, because I think kids will pick up on that, because a lot of kids are that character to someone. You know
right.
And nobody wants to identify themselves in a story and then say, well, where'd that...
What happened to me?
Yeah.
I wasn't valuable enough to talk about?
Well, I tell you what, one final question, because we're almost over. We're really out of time here. Here's your final question. Where do you want to go with, in terms of inviting readers to read the first part? Where do you want to go with this? What do you want from readers other than some feedback and things like that?
I want them to have fun with it, and we want to know. Particularly, I'd like to know what promises I'm making. So exactly what you've done with Ramona today is the kind of feedback that I need. to make sure that we don't drop any balls that we've thrown up in the air. So if you think about the premise of a story and the beginning of the story, you are making constant promises to readers. You know, one of the things that we've been talking about, and minor spoiler here, right? At some point, don't you expect Kaylee to face the mugger in the alley?
Right.
Like every superhero origin story, the first
they go back and they face their creator. Yeah.
The first thing that happens, right, once they're a superhero, and it happens even in The Incredibles, they do this right at the beginning, right? You have the mugger in the alley or some version of it.
Yep.
And remember that when Mr. Incredible has his waking up moment, what is it that happens, right? He can't go save the mugger in the alley because his dumb boss won't let him, right? And that's the catalyst. So that mugger in the alley theme is something that we really are, I'll be honest, are thinking about.
Yeah.
How do we pull that off in a different way where it's not just Kaylee discovering that she can be a superhero? We got to figure out something to do with that, because we're gonna have to do it. We have to do an homage to that trope.
You know, as we're talking here, so many questions are starting to pop in my head, and I'm looking at the clock, going, man, we can't. Let's just go for a few more minutes.
All right, let's do it.
I apologize, viewers, if you were looking for a 15-minute video. It's not going to happen. Eric, a question just popped in my head because you were talking about Kaylee facing her creator. Male readers, young boys. What do you think they're going to get out of this story? Now, granted, I don't have any trouble reading a book as an adult that has a female protagonist. That doesn't bother me. But have you and your daughter ever thought, hey, what are we going to do with this story? Is it going to appeal to young males?
The flat-out honest answer is this is a market-driven story, and 80% of the readers are female. And so for us, this is about writing. I mean, for me, one of the reasons this story came into existence, to be completely honest, is a sense that, I love my science fiction world, and I want to keep doing my science fiction world. I adore being in that world, but I'm not selling a lot of books there, and so being able to write a story that hits the target demographic better, that's actually buying books.
Well, listen, I think I told you a week or two ago, I was at a local bookstore. This has been a year, maybe a couple years back, and I was in the bookstore. It was it was later in the afternoon. It may have been a weekend, an evening, and there was a female writer there giving a talk, and oh my gosh, she had young female readers. They were mobbing that store, all screaming, and I remember listening because you could hear her. She was mic'd, and she was talking about her book series and this new novel that she was coming out, and I was just very impressed at her audience, at her followers. They were an army. They showed up en masse, and this is Atlanta, which is a major city, so it is what it is. But still, I was blown away. I didn't see many young boys. I mean, if they were there, I just didn't see them. All I heard was the squeals, and saw the way the girls reacted to meeting, I guess, their hero, the writer of this series. And I think you're dead on. I think you're right. You've identified your target audience, and there's nothing wrong with writing a book to an audience's need.
That having been said, I think young boys are going to like it. I think boys
I like superhero books. So yeah. And quite honestly, I mean, I read Wonder Woman comics when I was a middle schooler. I remember, was it George Perez? I'm going back, my memory's failing here, but there was one. I think George Perez was the famous artist who started doing the Wonder Woman comic, and his art was incredible. And all of a sudden, Wonder Woman became good because it was part of it was probably because boys liked the way Wonder Woman dressed, but the stories were good and the art was incredible.
Yeah.
And I think it was George Perez. But anyway, boys can read girl books. Mom, Dad out there watching, if you got a young boy, there is nothing wrong with them reading Eric's Gossamer. It's a cool story.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of guys on that Gossamer's Army list. So.
Very cool. When can we expect Gossamer's Army Part 2? Or Gossamer, the second...
We are actually done editing that. We could probably put it out any time, but we want to slow down and make sure that we give this a few weeks to percolate.
Yeah, let's spread the word.
The other piece is I don't want to leave a huge gap after that. So Gossamer gets my full attention once Grablander is done.
Grablander. And by the way, Gravelander episode 8 drops this week. Maybe. I'm not putting any pressure on you, dude, because I know you're under a lot of pressure.
It's an interesting place to be. Literally, if you know the hero's journey, right? Josephine.
Yeah.
Just went through her death and resurrection, right? And now she's transformed somehow, and I'm really working in my head about exactly what I want that transformation to look like.
Well, from a reader's point of view, I don't think you can go wrong. It's 8, 9, and 10. I mean, obviously, I want something good, but I'm happy. I'm very happy. After part 7, I'm like, okay, he has delivered. I assume you have 8, 9, and 10. You know that those will come out and everything will be good. But I'm quite happy with how this story has progressed.
Good.
And I'm looking forward to part 10 because I don't know where you're going still. I mean, I kind of, I will say this: Rubicon, loved it. Cannot wait for Athena. What's the full title again?
Athena's Revenge.
Athena's Revenge. So I understand your explanation that Gravelander takes place between those 2 books. So I'm very excited about Athena's Revenge. Very excited. Not to put any more pressure on you. Finish Gossamer, see where that goes, and then you let Athena's Revenge stew a little bit. That's just my recommendation to you. You take it as you want. But I did like Gossamer. Don't take my prologue critique as anything super heavy. It was just I want to know more about this bad guy group.
Yeah,
the Hall of Supervillains is always more interesting to me than the Justice League, anytime. So, well, listen, my friend, we have gone way over, but hopefully our viewers will not care. And I'll tell you, viewers, if you got any questions that you want to pitch Eric or me, feel free to send them. Go to ericwex.com and get us your questions. Any suggestions you want for future episodes, we're happy to take them. Eric, enjoying Gossamer, and hopefully this video will get some new readers coming your way for the Gossamer series. Hopefully Gossamer's Army will start growing some interest there.
That'd be fun.
All right. Well, listen, we'll pick up again next week, and we'll come up with a different topic for next week.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Good talking to you. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.